record on this computer. Cool. We are starting. I guess we are recording live, but like I said before, just kick off a conversation. No worry. So where to begin? I guess I don't know. Like all stories kind of start at the beginning. So where does your interest in writing, or start?
Well, I first got interested in writing in general, I suppose, just in school. I mean, just like most kids. But it was sort of one of those things that I didn't really take seriously. And then maybe around high school, I kind of got it more serious about it. But really it was through music. I got real into music. I always played in bands, and I did a lot of stuff that way. And a lot of the music I got into had a literary component to it, but then also like, musicians would turn you on to different writers. And so the palette of, colors would grow with each new discovery. And so I'd say by high school or so, I started writing. I wrote a couple things that like my peer group or friends thought were good. And that's kind of how that stuff starts, is like somebody kind of tells you that it's all right. And then you kind of put more effort into it. But yeah, really music writing, I think first kind of was the first thing that really got me excited. There was a music publication in Milwaukee called Milk that I used to get from the record store. And then there was the Shepherd Express. And then of course, Rolling Stone at that time was pretty good. So I got really into kind of reading those types of pubs. And then through that music that I would find, then I started getting into like, the beat poets and Thoreau and all the stuff that you read when you're that age, if you're exposed to it,
Yeah. Now, where did you grow up? Can I say around? Oh, can I assume around Milwaukee area or?
Yeah. So just a town called Racine. It's just south of Milwaukee. So I was right between Milwaukee and Chicago.
For those of us, or like myself, that just kind of grew up on the Northeast, the East Coast, I'm not too familiar with the region. What was that like growing up there, like culturally, and how did that kind of, growing up in that region, how did that really kind of influence your writing, I guess?
Well, it's a very blue collar area. So like I worked in a factory when I was 18.
Yeah.
And so it's geared that way. But there's nature around. There's sort of industrial sprawl. There is everything you think about classically with sort of the Great Lakes area. Chicago obviously was a huge cultural hub that we were able to take part in as teenagers. And same with Milwaukee. I mean, it was kind of the late 90s was kind of a golden period in some ways of music, indie music, underground music, so yeah, we kind of had access to all that. But influence of the region on my writing, I guess, would be everything. I mean, that's the paradigm that I grew up in. So my way of processing anything or thinking about writing, or it's a part of my perspective. Even if it's not my perspective, it's a part of my perspective in the sense that I can understand it, even if I don't have the same viewpoint, So it's, I think it's a huge part of it. I don't think Saturday Night Sage as a book could take place without it. I mean, I think it's pretty entrenched in that area. Although, I mean, the book travels too. The book goes to the coast because I live there too. So, but the formative years, yeah, very much Wisconsin has everything to do with that.
Well, I guess like to kind of dive a bit deeper into that level, was there any like, is there any like certain groups or culture that area is known for? Like, maybe I'm not asking like clearly, but let's say I grew up in Boston, and Boston's known for Irish Catholic kind of a city, and that kind of influences a lot of work there, in art and film. Say around that region, was there a specific religion or culture that really kind of takes precedence or is known in that region, or is it more of a diverse melting pot, I guess?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I would call Racine a melting pot
Yeah.
exactly, but as far as like, I mean, it's not New York City, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as I don't really know. I mean, there's like the Midwest is known for a lot of Italian and Polish
Hmm.
immigrants. There's Germantown in Milwaukee because of all the German immigrants that came. I mean, so there's stuff like that, but that's not during my lifetime. I mean, that's like um, historic stuff that sociologists would be a better answer. I don't know about all that. But yeah, it's not, there's not like one dominant thing, like, what you're talking about, I guess. But there's, again, Milwaukee and Chicago were, I mean, those are cultural hubs, definitely Chicago more so even than Milwaukee. I mean, you can get into anything you want in Chicago, so
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's, so it's not like growing up in Boston, but it's like growing up in a small factory town 45 minutes outside of Boston, maybe, then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I guess what I was trying to raise up, because I've read a little piece from the Rumpus that it kind of states that, surrounded by Catholics, Buddhists, Hare, Krishnas, Pentecost,
Yeah.
and
Hare
hippies.
Krishnas. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's my family. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
what you're asking about, that's not like, so some of those outside influences like Krishna consciousness and stuff, that's
Hmm.
things that my parents left the area to go get into.
Oh,
And
okay.
then they came back to the area, and it was just something that was a part of my life growing up. It wasn't, it's not like it's, yeah, Racine's not a Krishna hub or anything like that. That's just my parents happened to get into that stuff. And so that was a part of my life. And with the immigrants, I mean, I come from an immigrant family. So
Hmm.
what's dominant in the area and what my family experiences is different because, they came after World War II and stuff like that. So, uh, yeah, I mean, that's just a press blurb too. It's not.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, that was just like, I was like kind of sparked my interest of like, is it diverse like that in Milwaukee area or Wisconsin? It's so I
I
was
mean, there's certainly all those things. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a state like any other state. There's rural areas and there's city areas and there's, I mean, you can find all those things. It's not, it's, but as far as the race scene that I grew up in, there wasn't all that stuff happening. It's just in my household, there was all that stuff happening, which is what the press blurb is speaking to, is that,
Yeah.
like the book opens with, I wrote in from Maya, and the concept of Maya was just something that my mom would speak about.
Hmm.
So it wasn't, it was a part of the language of the household because it was because she went and she studied those things and got involved, and so those concepts became a part of our household even after those teachings weren't. And so that part of the book and that part of the whole project is just something that's organic to my experience. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily indicative of the region, but the topic of the book in general is a character whose experiences, doesn't fit in with their perspective, right? So they're asking questions that are too big for their for too big for the experiences that they have that they have access to in that moment, so then they go out seeking those experiences to try to answer these bigger questions.
Mm.
And so, I mean, that's just based on sort of, an idea that I had about characterizing that. But so it speaks more to that than it's been some kind of like blanket statement about the region. I mean, it's like, you can't really, there's all kinds of people in Wisconsin who believe all kinds of things and get into all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, it's, I would never take it upon myself to categorize the state.
Oh yes, it might have been just my misinterpretation of of the phrase, or overthinking it, I guess.
Well, I think in the press thing, it's worded. I mean, like in that piece, because I do know what you're talking about. Like, it's worded a particular way, but the truth of the quote, or the truth of the, because it's not a quote either, but the truth of the sentiment is that I grew up exposed to those different teachings, and so they organically found their way into the book that I wrote, as organically as things ever find their way into a book, which is not that organic. I mean, you make those choices, but
did you ever study more upon those ideas and those part of those beliefs that your parents held? Did you ever dive deeper into that on your own terms, or did you practice any form of that?
Yeah, I'm still diving into it. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. I mean, I think I'll spend my whole life diving into it. I think if you have that, that curiosity in that space, to kind of ask those sort of questions and explore, try to make sense of, of the whatever the mystic realm,
Yeah.
however you break that down in your own life. If you have the gumption, it seems to be, you can't escape it, in which in my own life, separate from the book. I mean, because the book's obviously, it's a stylized, hyper pseudo real, whatever, a character that's not even supposed to be based on me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just exploring this idea. But for myself, I mean, if that's what you're asking, yeah, still every day I read something, or look up something, or watch something, or find something in that space to continue exploring. I mean, I think it's fascinating. Yeah, more so than like, turning on the news or something, so.
Well, yeah. On that note, do you think we've kind of, as a society, kind of lost that? Like, have we lost something due to our, digital age and, constant stream of information? And have we? I guess I've felt it. I guess, like, the loss and connectedness to, um, nature and, the higher spirits, whatever you may call them, those energies. I've been also on a quest to kind of discover spirituality, and I just find that, like, in my observation, that I think we've kind of lost that uh, in the last few years due to, digital technologies. But I was curious on your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly lost things, but we've also gained things. I mean, I don't know, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation like this, you know what I mean? So, like, it's hard. Like, I'm not a Luddite at all. Like, I don't have that, I do really enjoy solitude, and, I really enjoy kind of the monastic sort of practice for, like, for that benefit. I think time outside, or quiet time alone, or time without screens is hugely valuable. But I wouldn't say that means we shouldn't have screens. I just, just means that we should make sure we have time that we're not on a screen, you know? And so, yeah, I think most people would agree that we've lost certain things, but we've gained certain things too. And I don't know that, like the cost benefit of that. I don't know that I can make total sense of it, but, you know, you can use your phone or your laptop with the same intentionality. You know, I mean, there is something visceral about like, you know, okay, it snows, you know, there's a foot of snow outside, and now you have to shovel it. Like there is something tangible about being forced to interact with nature that you don't get if you are in a Las Vegas hotel, right? You know, that's the same temperature all the time, and you don't know what time of day it is, you know. It's like, you know, so there is something tangibly, you know, that you can miss out on if you're in too superficial of an environment for too long, I suppose, you know. But man, I don't know, you know, that's definitely not an easy question as far as like the benefit of it all. I mean, the natural world's suffering. There's no question about that. So, I mean, we can't exactly act like there's not a cost. You know, I mean, there's a cost to everything, but there's a cost to living outside too. You know what I mean? Like that's not easy, you know, it's like, so yeah, I'm not sure. It's a giant question. And,
Oh yeah, yeah. I like
yeah.
that. Like, you know, just kind of be hypothetical at times and just kind of throw out some just larger.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting space, because you do have to ask yourself, at what point are you no longer getting the benefit of the stuff that you've purchased for your life? And not to be too like, you know, pound a fight club about the whole thing, but it's like at some point you have to ask yourself, is this tool adding value? You know, like in whatever it was, 2014 or something, I gave up having a smartphone for a year, and I wrote a series of pieces on it. And like, it was great. It restructured my whole life in as far as of communication went. It restructured how I did that. To this day, I mean, I have a smartphone, but I don't keep my email on it. You know, if you mail me, I'm going to get it when I check my computer, you know, and I'll respond then. Like, you're not going to catch me when I'm, you know, in transit somewhere. So that's a leftover of that, you know? And so I think it's valuable to take breaks from things. Like, I think it's valuable to stop eating certain things for a while and to see if you really need to be eating that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all fuel. And I think there's big questions to ask ourselves about it. If we're doing things that are improving our state of being and the livelihood of those around us or not, you know what I mean? Or in the health of those around us. You know, it's an interesting thing. Like if you get on a smartphone and you try to do something when there's a kid in the room, to watch how agitated the kid gets that you're looking at the phone rather than them. You know, it's an interesting thing. It's like, well, and then to think about if your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife does it and how agitated you get then, right? You know, it's like, we can tell that things are being wedged into our value structure that we're not okay with. We just don't know what to do about it. And people in general feel like they're not the issue. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, yeah, but I'm fine on my phone. It's not irritating when I'm on my phone, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, it's like germs are like that. Like, you know, I'm not gross. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay if I don't wash my hands because I'm not the gross one. It's like, no, everyone's gross, you know, like we're all gross sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing to unpack. It's a interesting thought. And, but I do think there's danger in the hyper romanticism of like, if I could just live in a cabin, then I would find God.
Yeah.
Because then you would like to think that God's more potent in that cabin than he is in your house. It would be it's a weird attribute and a weird limitation to put on, and you know what by all accounts is supposed to be an infinite being, right? So I don't know about all that, but do I prefer to be out in nature? Yeah, of course. If we're just talking aesthetic preferences, I would rather, take me
Yeah.
out to the cabin, and that's much better than being in the subway for
Mm.
me.
Totally. I think we need a mixture of both. Like, well, for me, I need a mixture of both of like, a period of time out in the woods, and then, I still need the energy of the city too. But did kind of wrapping back to some biographical stuff. Did you go to school for writing, or technically?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I got a English composition degree.
Now, how was that like studying English as a major? Did that instill I've spoken to, say, like fine art students where they're like, you only learn bad habits in school, like,
Yeah, no, I don't think that's true. I have heard people say stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I think it's cool. I think everybody wants to be the like rough around the edges. I learned how to do my art on the streets by doing it person.
mm,
I think that's a very attractive narrative. And, the prolific artists who can't tie their shoes, but somehow gets all their work done and makes millions, right?
yeah,
Um, I think it's a pretty attractive narrative. But the truth is, school is useful if you make it useful. You know what I mean? Like if you go there and you have the frame of mind where you're gonna find the people who have things to teach you, avoid the people who don't.
mm,
It's like anything else. It's like this conversation. It's like going to work. It's anything. If you come to learn, you'll find something to learn. It's like when the student is ready, then the master appears, right? Like
sure, yeah, yeah,
uh, so I don't know. 22-year-old me would have probably shat on school
yeah,
quite a bit more, but at this point in life, I mean, at school, I met a couple people who've become lifelong writing friends, people
mm,
who even helped with this book, like, so that's valuable. You build your confidence because you have to write all the time, which is great. So there's a lot of good stuff about it. Now, yeah, do you have to sit in classes and listen to people who are never going to turn out to be writers pontificate for 20 minutes about their short story? Sure. You know what I mean? Like, do you have teachers who you would never want to read their book? Sure. But you also have great teachers who would turn you on to stuff that you would never find on your own. And, there's,
mm,
emergent literature classes where you can, get into stuff that it would be hard to find on your own, So,
yeah.
you know, I had pretty much a good experience, um,
Now,
but
was your university in the Midwest, or did you
yeah,
kind of go to the East or West?
Wisconsin, yeah.
Cool.
I went to just one of the state schools, not the Madison, but just like one of the offshoots, and um, yeah, it was totally fine. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just what you're looking for, and English as a mm, as an area of study, it's mostly done to keep moving on to master's or to a doctorate. So it's, you're either going to enter the education system and you're going to teach, or you're going to, um, sort of parlay that into something in kind of like the publishing world and stuff, like the more formal, world,
Mm,
which going to a Midwestern school, you're probably not going to be able to, like, you're going to need to go out East probably. I mean, I don't know what it's like now with the publishing world, but you got to go to a pretty good school and get the right internships. And, there's a
mm,
lot of gates, there's a lot of gates to hop, but, I wasn't interested in teaching. So I just got my degree and moved on, but, yeah, I think it's just what you want out of stuff, I mean, I think schools choose your own adventure. I mean, have the if you have the drive to go for certain things and make a certain thing happen, I mean, then that's one way to do it. And there's other ways to do it too. So, I mean, I get that argument. My degree didn't get me work. I can say that much, but I think it helped build confidence and do things that allowed me to get work. And I think that's valuable. And I was blessed with a couple really cool teachers and a couple good friends who were huge encouragements. Writing is, it's a low return occupation. Like you do a lot that nobody sees. It's like if you go on Instagram and you see like a typewriter with a candlestick next to it, it's like #writing, right? It's not writing. You know what I mean? That's being a photographer, and that's cool too. And then there's like, being a social media influencer, having 50,000 Twitter followers. That's not exactly writing either. That's a different thing. Like the actual writing time is alone in a room, with a laptop and sweatpants probably, you know what I mean? Like it's not real aesthetically pleasing. And you don't get a lot back, but eventually you get something back and somebody likes something, and it's like you just keep building it. But yeah, I think that the confidence piece is huge. It's just the confidence in the drive to keep doing it. And I think maybe school's not the way to get that, but definitely some sort of peer group, and most writers find it in schooling, I think, or writing groups, what I mean? Like they sign up for some kind of writing group or something so they can, because again, you're dealing with a bunch of introverted folks who are home writing. How are you going to meet them? Like
That's true.
You got to have some sort of centralized party to even just to make friends,
Well, that's why I miss like like open mics and like poetry slams, that live performance aspects, and hearing that, the vocal expression from, of poetry, I guess. Like I love poetry that's kind of performed. So that's why I love like open mics and like slam poetry a bit. Like I was really into that back. I grew up I went to school in Miami, came back to Boston, kind of worked in Boston area for a bit, and Cambridge, Mass. There's a lot of there were a lot of open mics and stuff like that, and I used to love that aspect of. I've attempted to go up there and to perform, and I've learned that it is also a mixture of performer. Like you have to have that kind of ability to extend your expression to the performance, or if you read it just straight from line to line or break, it's kind of flat. So you have to keep the audience in mind, and it's kind of, you have that barrier. But I don't know where I was going. That I was just anyway. I just, it was an observation which I noticed the difference between writing for a page in a reader comparatively to listeners in a live audience per se. That's a comparatively. I do a lot of writing. I myself I have a typewriter and I write in the morning. But I I just have stacks of paper, brain dumps, a lot of brain dumps, and very visceral. But so yeah, just kind of wrap back to more the journey after school. Where'd you go? Did you stay around there? Did you go West Coast, East Coast? Did you travel, or did you look for work anywhere? Or
Yeah, no, I didn't. After college, I didn't really look for writing work for years after that. I kind of was burnt out on it all because of just having to write so much in school. And then, you'd get into these literature classes where you had to read, you were reading 3 different novels at the same time for 3 classes, and then having to write essays on all of them, and then write your own short stories or what. It's like, so it was good training for writing jobs as far as like being able to multitask projects, but you just kind of, it just got burnt out on it. So I mostly just played music after that for a while, but I was in Montana for a bit and went to New York and lived there for a while, and then out to California. So yeah, I kind of bounced around, but I did mostly labor jobs like throughout most of that time. And then just wrote songs or poems or just things when I felt like it. But there was no structure or discipline to it. As far as like, there was no objective.
Yeah.
Like you sit down and you write a poem, and God bless the person that writes a poem and thinks like, oh, people are going to like this. Cause I just can't imagine having that feeling ever, like
Yeah.
I just started writing stuff. And then as other doors opened, different opportunities come up, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'll write that. And like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll write that. And then you start making more friends, and, you do all right. And the next thing you know, you're getting offered a job writing. I mean, that's how it was for me. I kind of just got offered work, based on doing things for friends and then other stuff like that. But it took a while. It wasn't, it was 10 years or something after I graduated that I started having like steady writing jobs, I would just do intermittent things, So, but yeah, I just bounced around. I played music in bands and, did the whole, like, the problem with most writers is they spend all their time writing, and so they have nothing to actually write about. Like, I kind of took that quote to heart, which I don't know who said that. I heard it was Oscar Wilde, but I don't know if that's true. He gets a lot of credit for quotes that I don't think are always his, but
it's like
God bless him.
The fallback, just Oscar Wilde. Yeah.
Yeah. It was probably Oscar Wilde.
Well, no, I totally agree with that. Like, if you don't see other perspectives, you don't move around, you don't see life, if you don't struggle, you go through some struggles, I don't think you can be a good writer, per se. Maybe you can. But I found the best writing is those realistic moments, of struggle or work, like the mundane job. I Bukowski and stuff like that. But
yeah, well, I think that you either want, so there's different types of writing, right? So yeah, you're right in that sense. But I also think that, like, for me, I was interested either in telling other people's stories or telling my story, right? So I either wanted, and not my story literally, but I wanted to put my perspective out, or I wanted to put somebody else's out and help them do that. I wasn't really interested in anything in the middle of those two spaces. So I didn't want to put out somebody else's perspective and act like it was mine. And I didn't want to put out mine and pretend it was somebody else's. Like, I either wanted to, like, work for somebody, write their story, ghost write, or, content write for them, or I wanted to write what the hell I felt like writing just for the sake that I felt like doing it, So when you want to do that, having the experiences is the only way to do it, right? So there's like, you're sort of cutting your own legs off by choosing that route, because you're like, well, I want to live the thing that I'm going to write about, and I'm just going to go live my life. And if it is worth writing about, then I'll write about it. Like, you're sort of like, you're not setting out to, like, it's a different thing than that whole, like, self-destructive artist thing where you're like, I'm gonna go have the craziest experience ever. It's like, I wasn't ever like that. I'm way too mellow. Like, I'm not like a risk taker when it comes to, like, personal health, So that wasn't my bend, but I was certainly interested in experiencing different things, like I was always somebody who was like, oh, what's that like? And then I would just get really into it and then go check it out and go try to live in that place or go see what that experience is like. And because of my upbringing, I knew how to get blue collar jobs and stay afloat that way. So those were the jobs I had. Like, I didn't know a single person who made money writing. I didn't know a single person. I didn't know a single person who made a living in the arts whatsoever growing up. I knew people who were like full-time musicians, but they weren't making like what you would call like a living, you know, just doing that. They all had to do other stuff because they're just, it wasn't like that in that area. You know, there wasn't that amount of money to be made there doing the arts. So it was more just like knowledge meets opportunity, and here's what that looks like. It looks like doing any job that you got to do to live in this place, and then constantly trying to get, you know, constantly trying to schedule yourself out of work, you know. So if I'm working in a wood shop and I have to work 5 days a week to pay rent, then I work on my writing and like, okay, now I got a freelance writing job. So I only need to work 4 days a week in the wood shop, you know? And then, so it was much more like that for me, like the progression. It was not,
Now,
wasn't like,
is it, so is it are you cognizant of the fact that, say you go to Montana, you have to work, you know, these odd jobs? Are you very aware that by doing so, that could be incorporated into your writing material?
not
Or is it a
really. I mean,
subconscious thing?
you just got to pay the bills.
Yeah. No, I know you don't go there to like you said, like, I'm just going to have these experiences.
Sure, yeah,
Right. You go there to have the experiences and for knowledge and, you know, and seeking out new experience in general. But somewhere in the subconscious, maybe, is it lingering that this could lead to some interesting material down the road? Or you just
Well, I
like,
mean,
I'm
I
just
think,
gonna be in the present and see what happens? But
yeah, I mean, it's probably, you know, I don't know if it's as pure as being in the present, especially at this point in life. Like, I don't, if I move or do things, it's extremely well thought out. It's not like I have a family and stuff that's, you know, I mean, so it's like, it's not, there's no like whimsical
yeah.
things happening at this point that way. I mean, to most people, they might still look whimsical, but everything's pretty well planned out at this stage in life. But like going to Montana, for instance, or going to New York, it's like, well, going to New York is just, that's, you know, everything I was interested in. Everyone that I looked up to or I thought was interesting went to New York at some point, you know? So it's like, well, you just got to go there and at least like for a year, just see what it's all about. And then a year turns into, you know, 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, or for some people, 20 years, you know? And so, but it's not like, oh, this will be good, so I can earnestly write about New York. Like, the last thing anyone needs is another person writing about what it's like to move to New York and get your ass kicked. Like, that's like, it's, you know, and some of these things are just so cliche at this point that, you know, you can't, I mean, even moving to Montana, I mean, I had no idea at the time, but like, cause I was just, you know, I don't even know how old I was, but I was in my early 20s and devoid of any writing community whatsoever. I had no idea. I just wanted to go out there because I had an opportunity to, and it seemed cool. So I went, and I didn't really know why I was going. It just was like, well, why not go? And then you get there and you find out, like, in the 70s, all these writers moved to Montana, and it was this great source of inspiration. And it was part of the, you know, it's loosely hooked into the post-beat San Francisco movement. It's like you start learning all this stuff later, and you're like, oh yeah, there's sort of a path people take. Oh, okay, I get it now. But like, it's much more like, what's the next thing I can do? And the alternative at that point is, you know, working at the factory, or working on the paint crew, or working on the, it's a job that's going to be there when you come back, you know. Although now those jobs aren't even like that. Factory's long closed at this point, but at the time it felt like a job you could always come back to. So it was like, well, why not go try this thing? And with no real ambition to be a, like, whatever, full-time writer, you know what I mean, at the time. So it's not, I get what you're asking, but I wish it was like beautifully orchestrated like that, you know, because it would be such a great story. Like, yeah, then I knew that my character needed to get into fly fishing, so I was going to go out there. And yeah, I wish it was that thought
Well,
out, but
that's true though. I mean, like, it's as life, things just happen. So you you don't plan on a lot of it happening. It just happens to you as you go along, and
well, and there's people involved.
yeah,
That's what, like, all these stories that you hear of, like how people's lives unfold, and like artists, and like like artists talk about their lives, and the part that's always missing is the people. There's
exactly.
people involved in all these decisions. Like, I got married, I made a decision with my wife where we should live,
Mm,
like it wasn't my decision. Like, it wasn't like, it's going to be really good for my story someday if we go live in the state. It's like, no, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, there was people involved in the move to Montana. There was an open door because of the generosity of certain people. So they opened a door for me and said, "Hey, I think this would be a good experience for you. You should come out here." And I said, "Yeah, I think it would be a good experience." And I went.
mm,
And then because of the generosity of other people, there was more doors opened. I mean, empathy and the relationships that are so central to how all these things unfold. And it's a disservice not to recognize that. It's like, you're not like you're not, yeah, like the Netflix documentary might be better if it's like this rogue guy just like, I'm going here. But like, yeah, no, there's people involved in all these choices, and so um beautiful friends, beautiful family members, like people who just really saw the benefit of opportunities that I was too in my own head to see the benefit of. But I was
mm.
luckily smart enough to say yes and go. And so I got the benefit of it, and there was hardships because of that too, of course. You know what I mean? Life's not linear, but these kind of conversations always are super linear. So it's hard to like express what those things were actually like,
Oh yeah. Well, I think I find this is like the hardest thing to do for myself, is try to spark up a conversation with somebody I've never met before, right into this like plane, digital plane. You just appear. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And like it's very hard to, go deep with somebody you just met via digitally.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just weird without trying to be like Q&A. I try to get the background, of course, but it's hard to not, you know, you I find my tendencies sometimes go linear, but I try not to with intention, but sometimes it kind of leans that way just due to the conversation and energy flowing through that. But
Well,
I
and that's not a critique. I'm not critiquing it. I'm just saying that when you when you reflect on, hindsight makes more sense of things, So like when you're reflecting on things, you can look at a press release and be like, oh, you did this and then you did that and then you did that. It's like a bullet pointed timeline. So
yeah,
there's no reason. So there's no way not to discuss things that way, because that's the quickest way to move through them.
yeah,
But the the truth of everything is that it's the big plans that I had, or that you had for your life, or whatever those are. Those big plans, most of them get discarded for the way things go. And then the way things go, if you're open to it, and you can kind of ride that wave, that creates different big plans, and sometimes those are good or bad, depending on the year. But like, obviously everyone's coming off of a crazy year, and so it's um, serendipity takes on a little different tone right now culturally. But I think that it's important. It's an important thing to remember that there's a million small stories in all these big ones. And for you too, there's a million small stories of why you're even doing this podcast, and it's like when you hear interviews with people who start record labels or do things, it's like, well, I wanted to put out one record, like I wrote a book because I wanted to write a poem. Like that's how ambitious I was. I sat down and I wrote a poem. So I wrote another one, what I mean? It's like,
I was going to ask you, like, what prompted you to write the book, but it's just poem after poem. And then, but who decided it was a book? Was it you, or was it an editor? Was it outside eyes that like, you have a collection here?
Yeah, I mean, I had been writing, so I've been writing poems since I was in, I don't know, probably high school, I guess. I mean, I've been writing song lyrics since I was 13. So,
yeah.
And some of those never became songs, so I guess they were poems, but so, I mean, I've been quietly writing stuff, and so I did that for a long time, but eventually I wrote a collection of work and ended up putting it in a drawer and just shelving it because it just was not, I don't know. The idea of trying to get somebody interested in it, pitching it and all that was just like, it just made me feel nauseous, to be honest. So I just pitched it in a drawer, and forgot about it. And then, the years go on and you keep writing and you find yourself writing more poems and writing more things and, end up getting work writing. And so now I'm writing all day. And so in between other writing projects that are my job, I'm sneaking in a poem here and a poem there and an article here. And, like the passion for it starting to ramp back up. And so eventually I ended up with this idea that I thought was kind of central to this batch of poems. And then I started going through all my poems and figuring out like, well, have I been writing about this kind of stuff this whole time? And the answer was no, but there was pieces that were kind of went back a ways that sort of worked with it. And so I started like pulling everything into a folder and I started thinking of it as a narrative more than just poems. Just started thinking of it as this narrative, like, well, this is kind of like about this character and like, who is this character? And it's like, he's a version of, these few people and, all the stuff that you would do if you were writing a fiction story. But I just did it with poems, I just let those be the chapters and the different things. So I didn't have to follow a super narrative arc in his story. And then Dan from Blind Owl, I was writing liner notes for him and I was writing a bunch of stuff for, some of the bands and stuff. And I just sort of mentioned, I was like, man, I kind of got this thing. And because he had really liked one of the liner notes that I wrote and he was really into it, And so I was like, well, I've kind of got this thing. It has a similar feel to some of these liner notes, but it's, it's a little more heady, man. I don't know, and he got excited about reading. So I sent him, I don't know what it was, like 6 pieces. And then he was like, yeah, he just really liked it. He was into it. So when the door got open to publish a book is when it became a book, like before that, it was just this theme that I was sort of exploring. And I didn't know if it was going to be, kind of how it was going to resolve itself. I was just sort of working through it, trying not to put too much pressure on it to be or do anything. And I didn't submit any of those poems for publication or anything. Like it was just something that I was interested in. And then once we turned that corner, then I started writing intentionally to finish it out. And so I had things that I knew that I needed in there and, and then I got the title figured out in that title piece. And that was really when it was like, okay. And then I sent that to him. And that was when it was really like, okay, yeah, this is a book now. And this is, this is a thing. So he was real central in it. But as far as editing goes, I actually, back to the school thing, I have a friend from college that helped me edit and helped me go through everything. And she's been a great sounding board all these years, on and off. And so she helped with that. And then, I think just as far as combing down the collection goes, and then beyond that, that was about it, So it was, it kind of became a book when the opportunity to publish a book, there wasn't like, I wasn't pitching it to people. So, and at first Dan was like, I don't know anything about publishing a book. And I was like, yeah, I don't really either, but if you think it's cool, and if I think it's cool, then let's just figure this out and just get it out there, And so, and then that led to the record, So, I mean, it's all kind of, it's been really organic. And that's, if I was listening to this, I'd find that to be a frustrating answer, but it's just, relationships have a lot to do with, building the trust that's required to take on these size projects. You're either going to have a good relationship or a bunch of legal contracts. Like you're not going to have, it's hard to have both. So, yeah, it's been a great experience though. But yeah, that was kind of how it came about, And then I was writing right down to the last day that it went to the printer. Of course, I kept changing stuff, and I'd still be changing stuff if I hadn't been cut off, because that's just how that's just how I am.
Did you also have in mind at the time too the EP version as well, or?
I did not. The recordings, I mean, for me, the recordings were like a nod to like John Sinclair and stuff like that, like it, Kerouac and Burroughs, and sort of that beat, post beat, sort of just having fun with it, like let's just record something. It'll be fun. Who cares? There's a great video of Johnny Depp reading Kerouac, Mexico City Blues. I can't remember which chorus, but it's awesome. It's super fun. It's cool. So the idea was much more like that. It was like, for me, it was like, all right, well, let's do a couple recordings and make videos out of them and just kind of use them as, ads for the book, essentially, just content, right? Because who doesn't, I mean, it's easier to get someone to watch a video than it is to read a book, right? So let's do that as kind of a, bring it to market type and just have fun. It was fun. It was my friends. I went in the studio with my friends and I recorded tracks, and then I got my friends who make videos to make videos for them. And I didn't tell the people in the studio what to play. I didn't tell the videographers and the directors what to shoot. Everyone did their complete own thing, and I had no input in it. So like, it was great. It was a collaborative, fun thing with my friends for a little poetry book that who was going to read it? I mean, who cared? It was fun, And then Dan really kept pushing for a record. He was like, man, I think these are cool. I think we should put them out. And I kept telling him no. I was like, man, I don't want to do all that. Like, let's just work on the next book or something, you know what I mean? Like, or let's just talk about the next project. Let's just move on or whatever. But to his credit, he was like, no, man, I think there's something here. And so we started having a real conversation about it, and he really produced it, and he really kind of took the lead on making something out of it. And since he's also in, the band, a band with Ethan, that door opened. And I mean, who would say no to recording with them? I mean, that was, I've been a fan of Ethan since since 2008, 2009, something like that. So like when that door opened, it was, of course, I would love to do that. Let's do it. I don't even care what the music is. Just let's just do something together. It'd be great, So it was kind of one of those things where Dan really had the vision for it. And then Alan had done the book cover, and it was just so cool. Like, he did such a good job, and we've become, really good friends since then. And so when it came time for the EP thing, it was like, yeah, let's definitely get Alan to draw a different, kind of different scene from the story, and that's where that title comes from. Sounds from the Shadow Factory comes from the Saturday Night Sage poem, sort of the, dealing with the, dealing with the shadows of the mind. So it was kind of a fun image that he came up with for it, and it was cool. So, but again, it was really sparked by collaboration and by just working with friends who were excited to do stuff because they like the work and I like their work, and it was an awesome experience.
Yeah. I guess kind of to wrap up, like another kind of broad question, like where do you see uh, uh, where do you see your work evolving to, or any projects kind of already kind of in the back burner, or do you see any new ideas in the future? How do you see it evolving, if you can even answer that? You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be just like what the next opportunity is going to dictate a lot. But there's certainly there's 2 or 3 books that I have outlines and I have notes for that I'm looking forward to diving on and diving into and starting to like work on. There's an idea for a record that would be bit more musical, a bit more of a music release than Sounds is, but would be, kind of a step off of that. And yeah, I mean, I have I have stuff in the works for both sides of it. I don't know, what opportunity, and I mean, obviously now, like with the pandemic ongoing, certain things are harder to do than other things. So with respect to that, that does weigh on the decisions of that. And then it's also just like what's exciting, like if it's I try to create art in some ways responsively, so rather than, I mean, I spent a long time when I was younger just doing whatever I felt like doing and just trying to beat the door down, and at this stage in life, I sort of just feel like I have ideas and I have things that I would love to work on, and I will work on all of them, and we'll see what the order is, like, yeah, got to be a little bit open to, what the next deal is. But I mean, look, it's a small run record. It's a small run book, it's like, there's not 10,000, there's not 50,000, you know what I mean? There's a few copies out there. They'll be gone, and then it'll be, what to do next will be the big conversation. And I'm definitely looking forward to jumping on something in the spring here once we finish all this promo up.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. What do you think I should do next?
I would say live in the. I think you got to go to Hawaii or something, man. You got to live in the tropics, or
Yeah, I
experience.
got to move somewhere else just so I have something to like write about, right?
Exactly. No.
It's funny.
Maybe write a script, film, TV.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
No, I don't know, man. Who knows? Like I never expected to be here, ever starting a video cast, or what do you call this? My intention with this was initially going on site, going on location, framing the individual in a corner, and having like a side lighting and having black and white, and just having like the individual frames singular, and having my voice interject, and as the outside interviewer. But
Sure. Yeah.
obviously I couldn't. Yeah, that stopped after 3 interviews, and then I obviously went to Zoom, but it expanded my reach, nationwide. I'm talking to yourself on the West. I've spoken to so many great people on the West Coast too. So it's broadened my reach to have these, diverse range of conversations. Um, but I've also never expected to get in photography and pursue it seriously either, or conversations or art seriously. Man, I have a degree in criminal justice, and I ended up in New York, in Brooklyn, and now I'm upstate in New York. And who knows where I'll end up in 5 years? I don't know. I try to live in the present, but
Sure, man. Yeah.
I guess just another kind of journalized, I guess, podcast kind of or a question would be like, any advice for the young writer, who's maybe idealistic and has that, like, I have to go through do the generic path of New York or something like that, or um, any advice to a young writer who kind of wants to pursue it as a profession?
Well, I feel like if you feel driven to go to one of these places, then that's totally cool. I mean, I would never talk anyone out of it. I think that uh, we're, there's something about people who move all the time, who are always looking for the next thing. And eventually you got to ask yourself, like, eventually I have to ask myself if I'm, why am I continuing to move, so is it something that is it something that's benefiting me, or is it something that's like, is avoiding, am I running from something, right? Like, you got to ask those things. But for a young writer, I just feel like the most important thing for me, if I could tell myself, would be to remember to separate the work of writing from the marketing of writing. And not just in the sense of like, oh, I need an agent, or like, a manager and stuff that, I mean, these days people don't even care about having those things. So it's different, but not in the sense of like thinking that you need to be a well-branded writer, right? I mean, separating it in the sense of like understanding that the fruit of writing is more writing. So like, if you do a really good job writing, you get more opportunities to write. If you do a really good job at tweeting, you'll get more opportunities to tweet, right? If you get a really good job on Instagram, you'll get more opportunities to be on Instagram. So like, where you put the time, that's what you're going to get more of. So the best advice is to make sure you're putting it on the thing that you want more of, not the thing you think is going to get you what you want more of. So, and it's not that, I mean, look, I have terrible social media. If there's anybody listening to this, you can look it up and you probably laugh. It's like, I had very small follower counts and it's like, it's not where I've spent my time effectively. And there's something to be said for that. You can monetize those things, and there's, that's how different, but it's different job than writing. It's like, it's not, it's an offshoot. It's a part of writing in a lot of ways, but it's not exactly the same thing. So if I was going to tell somebody, I would just tell them to make sure that you like the work of writing. That sitting down and figuring out what something should say, or how to say it better, or editing is something that you enjoy, because it is an occupation of low return. You're going to write way more than you're ever going to have read, and you're going to, but when you get something read, it feels amazing, and the thing with different mediums, whether it's photography, writing, painting, music, is I had a friend, Donald Grosskos, he's a wonderful painter, who told me that your medium is the one you can go the deepest with the quickest. So the one that you can like hit the oil in a second with, that's your first medium. And then after that, get into whatever you want to get into, but that's kind of how So if you're somebody who can pick up a guitar and hit one note and the whole room stops and goes, what was that? It's probably your medium,
Yeah.
If you can snap a photo and everybody wants to see it, if you can, it's just the thing that like cuts through the air. What's the thing that you can do that cuts through the air? And it's not always going to. Look, I've written stuff people don't like. I mean, you know what I mean? It's all part of it. But it's where you can go the deepest. And it doesn't mean that everything you do is going to work or be deep or whatever. It's just the deepest for you, right? So that would be the advice, is make sure that you're spending the time on that thing and the thing that you want more of. And if you don't like, there's no, like this idea, the idea of the like prolific artist is just one of the most detrimental things to the arts to me. It's like, it's work. You get in what you put out, or you get out what you put in. And if you get up every day and you spend 8 hours a day working at it, then stuff's going to happen. If you get up and spend 4 hours, stuff's going to happen. If you get up and go on Instagram, then different stuff's going to happen, And so, and I'm not against that stuff. I'm not saying don't do it. But I do think it's crucial, it's like, if you hate playing shows and you're in a band and you hate touring, then like playing more shows is only going to make it worse. You know what I mean? So it's like, you kind of got to be upfront with yourself about what you want your life to be like, And writing's cool because if you have a knack for it, there's a million types of writing jobs. So you can have pretty much any lifestyle that you want, except for maybe like be super wealthy. That's pretty hard to do, writing. But otherwise, like, you can be a copywriter, you can be a technical writer, you can be a script writer. Like, there's a lot of different ways to do it, Poetry is not advisable for any sort of financial gain. But there's people who do that too. You know what though? I can say that, and somebody in the comments can probably rattle off 5 or 6 poets who make a ton of money. So people can do it. It's just, it has to be. There's a lot of things have to work out for that to happen. But I don't know. I've just worked with and I've met a lot of writers who don't like writing. And if you feel like you have to rustle the page and it's cumbersome and it's something you don't enjoy, I just can't imagine why keep trying to do it, So I would just pick something that you feel energized by doing. Like, it's probably the same for you with the photography and stuff, right? I mean, you probably feel great when you snap a good photo or you shoot a good video or you capture something. It's like that feeling of like, man, I could do this all day.
Yeah, I've kind of banked my last couple of years of just doing this, like, full bore. Prior I was kind of in the corporate kind of designing interfaces, UX. And then I just met somebody, my current partner, who saw when I first moved to Brooklyn from Boston on a kind of whim. I had all these street shots, and she really loved them, and pushed my work to Pace Magazine, and I started shooting for Pace Magazine and covering all the bands going up and down the East Coast, kind of covering bands in Philly, Boston, New York, and getting to experience all these new sounds. And then I had opportunities to just go backstage and cover big names, and that was cool. It just like,
sure,
I didn't plan it out. It just happened. Talking about just a universe kind of finding, or just not. I didn't seek it. It just sought me. I just felt like.
Well, that's part of the whole thing, though. So it's like when you ask, like, "Oh, did you move there thinking?" It's like, did you move to Brooklyn thinking that your girlfriend, you said, right, girlfriend, would?
Well, I met her in Brooklyn, so no.
Yeah, but did you move there thinking that you would have this girlfriend who would hook you up with Pace Magazine, who would change the trajectory of your life? It's like, of course not.
No, yeah.
Like, I moved to Brooklyn and I didn't think I was gonna meet my wife and the, dozen years of things that have happened since then, like, of course not, I mean,
Yeah.
you would be insane if you thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
You just have something inside you that says, I need to go to Brooklyn,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
just had the spark. And so, that being open to that mystic, whatever that is, being open to that mystic nudge, like, that's a huge part of all this. It's a huge part of the book. It's a huge part of us being on this call. It's a huge part of, like, that's the arts. Poetry for me it's all about the seeker's heart and the mystic mind. Like, that's how I think about poetry. It's very selfish. I'm going to seek, and I'm going to dive into the mystic with my mind, and I'm going to let go of it. And if I come back with stuff that's uncomfortable for me, or test my belief structure or my ideas of truth, then so be it. I'm not going to fight that. I'm just going to let it happen on the page. And then, like everyone else, I'll read it and I'll try to make sense of it. And the stuff that I can make sense of and I can do something with, I will. And the stuff I can't, I'll just let sit,
Yeah.
And so, but that thing that you're talking about, that's the thing that we all share. That's why we can have conversations about art, because at some point in all of our lives, we just went like, I feel like I'm supposed to be over there, or I feel like I'm supposed to know that guy.
Yeah.
And like, there's probably musicians that you've interviewed that 10 years ago you listened to or you saw somewhere, and you went like, I feel like I should just meet that guy. You can't explain why you feel that, but then 10 years later, there you are going like, I finally get to ask this dude the thing I always wanted to ask him, which is like, that's a mystic thing. Like, that's beyond like linear career planning.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's beautiful. I mean, that's the coolest thing.
Because I'm at a point, I'm getting older up there myself, 36 in April.
Wow. No, I'm only a couple of years older than you, but yeah.
Yeah. No, so it's like I have a lot of friends who are married now, did that linear path though of like,
Sure.
corporate path, and they're happy and they have children as well. And I'm like, myself though, I've been like on this kind of, like journey of evolution and finally finding my medium and self as an artist, like a bit later in the game. Even at 18, I wasn't exploring art too much. I was more into, playing sports. I was football, baseball, martial arts. And that's why I kind of got into criminal justice. I was looking into forensics and crime scene investigation and stuff like that. But it kind of ended up here now, in
Sure.
this path, and I feel more like myself, and as calling myself as an artist and photographer, comparatively to what I was doing prior to that. This just feels right intrinsically, and as identity, comparatively to what I was trying to do before. But I once again, yeah, it's like I never planned it per se. It just things just happen.
Well, there's this book. This guy was a Quaker. He's a Quaker pastor, and his name is Palmer.
Hmm.
And he wrote a book called Let Your Life Speak. And it's a small little book. It's like you can read it quick. But somebody gave me that book. That this guy Ed, who's been a mentor, and he gave me a copy of the book 10 years ago or something, right? But the thesis of the book is basically this guy Palmer was trying to figure out what his calling was, right? He's coming in from a Quaker point of view. So he's trying to find out, he's trying to figure out his calling. And he sort of has this realization that in every situation of your life, you're fundamentally in the same role. And once you realize what that role is, it can unlock your calling or your occupation, right? So for him, he realized he was like a teacher. That was kind of what he figured out. But and it's not dogmatic. It's not like, but if you're in on a sports team, or if you're in a band, those are very similar structures, right? So if you're always the one who has to do all the planning, you know what I mean? Who has to do all the booking, who has to make sure everyone's there on time. Or if you're always the one who's, doing something else, it's like you start to look back through your life, you start to see like, what's the fundamental task that I was drawn to doing in all these situations. And in that, you start to uncover sort of like what you're all about. And so that book for me was super helpful because it freed me up a little bit in my thinking from like thinking I had to discover, and realizing it was more about uncovering. It was more about just like looking back and going like, well, what's the thing? Like, what's the thing that I'm always doing? I'm always like, and so probably the same for you. I mean, how cool to be in your 30s and feel like you're more yourself than you've ever been.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel
what's
like
cooler than that?
I feel like, right, like I feel like I am still young, man, and I feel like if you still feel young, 60, 70, 80, I mean, I feel like having that youthful energy throughout your life, I think it elongates it, and
Oh, totally. Yeah.
having that childlike mind of an artist will continue, you know, to expand your, lifeline, because you just, you're not, we're all bogged down by life's, obstacles, but I mean, it's how you approach things and how you really look at it and reframe situations and how you react to those situations, and say, a lot of guys, I experienced or observed, they work hard jobs, blue collar jobs, and may go to a bar after, and then or come back home and sit in front of the TV and crack open a few beers and go back at it again at 6 a.m. Go to work, and you could fall into that rut too, but or but as an artist, I think you have that outlet of you have that medium calling you and pushing you, and you have that sense of exploration and wanting to discover more, and put that into your work. But not you realize not everybody has that.
I mean, I think different people have different passions, I mean, for
Yeah.
sure. But there's a lot of those, I mean, I grew up with people who, or I knew people, that work, I mean, I work 9 to 5, but I mean, I knew people who worked 9 to 5, but maybe they didn't paint, but they would take apart a car motor, or they would restore like a, like an old truck or an old, Chevelle or something. So it's like the the drive to create and be creative and to have an expression of your own perspective. I think it's pretty universal. I mean, I'm sure you can find people who don't care about that, but man, I think it's a little more ingrained than, that creator. It's just not all creativity is evaluated the same, like,
Mm.
you know, culturally, and so if you have, certain things are considered high art or low art, so, and those are considered those things by marketers who are basing that on the expendable income of the different demographics that they can market to, and so it's like,
Mm.
none of that has anything to do with us. Like, I'm just a dude who works a job, who wrote a book, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my time away from my job. And then I'll be a dude who writes another book in my time away from my job, and I'll still have a job, and I'll still be fundamentally operating that same way. And so I think that, there's some freedom in that, there's some freedom in realizing that it's a universal pull. I think that, more people have than maybe get credit for it culturally.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I guess then we can wrap, my good sir. Just where, say, if I wanted to purchase your book, where could I find it? Online or?
Yeah. So for the record, it's available on Bandcamp. You can get the book and the record from Blind Owl on Bandcamp. And there's different packages for sale because the record's still pre-sale today, but it comes out on the 19th. So I'm not sure when this hits, but it'll be up there for sale. It's very limited though, so it probably will be gone soon. So definitely try to jump on it if you're interested in it. And then the books are also for sale on blindowl.com. And once the pre-sale's over, I think you'll be able to get the records there as well. But blindowl.com, Blind Owl on Bandcamp. And, I think, it's Blind Owl SD on all the social media stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, you can find everything through them. And,
Awesome.
and you can find me through them if you should like.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much, Noah, for your time. And I look forward to actually diving deep into your book and the EP as well.
Cool, man. Well, I hope you enjoy it. And if you have, any questions or anything, feel free to shoot me a message,
I certainly will. I'll try to hunt you down on social media. I know you're on and off, but
I'm there, man.
cool.
I'm there. I'm just it's a slow pace for me.
Yeah. I totally get it, man. Well, I wish you and your family, just continuously being safe, I guess, safe journeys wherever you end up or stay. And yeah, be well.
All right, cool, man. Stay safe, all right?
You too, man. Take care.
All right, man. Peace.